Liz, would you rather be the sole breadwinner in your relationship or have your partner be the sole provider?
Oh my gosh.
If you had to pick.
I don't even know.
Right, which one's better?
My gut is me be the sole breadwinner because that's what I'm comfortable with.
I think that could lead to a lot of issues, though. Well, today we're talking about, is being the breadwinner in your relationship worth it?
Let's talk about it.
Welcome to Net with Lizzy and Lissa, where we analyze hidden costs and empower you to make your own damn decisions in life. Each episode covers a different facet of life, and at the end of each episode, we each give our takes on whether we think something is net positive or net negative from our perspective. Sorry, I threw you off because I said something different. I was trying to mix it up.
I'm Lizzy, a strategist and consultant with almost 20 years of experience in finance and investing.
And I'm Lissa, a personal finance expert and a certified financial planner. We're best friends who talk about money
and everything else.
Is being the breadwinner worth it?
First up, running the numbers on being the breadwinner.
In data from 2023, Pew Research said that husbands were the primary or sole breadwinner in 55% of marriages compared to 16% of wives being the sole breadwinner. The remaining 29% of couples earned about the same.
Okay, that doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah, right. More men are the breadwinner
than
women.
But a good amount earn about the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Over time, there has been a significant decline in the number of households where the husband is the sole breadwinner, meaning the husband earns all of the household income. In 1972, 49% of households had the husband as a sole breadwinner, but today that number has dropped to just 23%. And today, breadwinner wives are still the minority. Only 6% of marriages have a wife who is the sole breadwinner.
Oh, okay. I think I mixed it up. So the stat I said earlier were breadwinners in general, so they make more, but sole breadwinner is making all the money. Right?
Got it.
Yeah. So like you make money, but your spouse doesn't. That's what sole breadwinner is.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
Okay, that's a good clarification because I was getting confused.
Yeah, I think because my stat said primary or sole breadwinner, so that's grouped together.
Mm-hmm.
Primary breadwinner means you make more. Sole breadwinner is you're the only one making.
Got it.
That's
what it is. All right.
Yep.
All right.
Well, how do you think this affects mental health? Here's an interesting statistic from a UK-based research study conducted within the past year. So as wives begin earning more than their husbands, the probability of receiving a mental health diagnosis increases by as much as 8% for all of those observed in the study, meaning for both the men and women.
Wow.
But as much as 11% for the men. So it causes negative mental health impacts when the wives start to make more than the husbands for both sides of the couple.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, we know there's more to life than numbers and statistics, so let's talk about it. Is being the breadwinner worth it?
Okay, let's talk about the costs
Yeah.
of being the breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
Financial. You're spending more of your money that you're earning supporting a household.
Yeah. You're earning, you're bringing in money, but you're the one that's using the money to support not just yourself, but your family.
Right.
Your spouse and your family.
So let's say if you are the sole breadwinner, obviously you're providing
covering everything.
You're covering everything. Mm-hmm. If you earn more than a partner, but they still have an income, you may be still providing more than your share, so to speak.
Yeah.
Depending on how you guys manage your finances.
Yeah, it just depends on how you manage it, but it could come down. A lot of times I think it comes down to like if you guys have your finances in a good place and you are very transparent and open and you have a system and it works for both people, maybe you contribute a percentage, or some people like to go 50-50 regardless of what you're making. That then can provide, stability, but also could provide mental health issues on both sides. So that's I think major cost. Major cost of being the breadwinner is the financial responsibility, because that weighs a lot on people. But it also can lead to feelings of, I don't even know.
Being for the breadwinner, I think it can feel like a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And for the other person in the relationship, the other partner, I think it can feel inadequate, or there can be feelings of resentment or jealousy or
even guilt,
shame, depending on the dynamic. And I think that those negative feelings, I would imagine, and kind of per those stats, are probably more common for a man who is not the primary breadwinner in that dynamic, just because of our socialization in this culture that men provide.
Yeah. I mean, all that relates to power, right? So the power imbalance that happens when you look at the financial side of a relationship, it, to me, is kind of tough, because most people like to say, like, no, it doesn't affect our dynamic. But maybe, like, think about when things are going well, right? Y'all are happy. You got one breadwinner. The other person's taking on some responsibilities to even it out in the overall grand scheme of things. But let there be like an argument, someone feeling like the other person's not doing enough, because life goes up and down, right? Like, people aren't like consistent all the time,
for sure,
in their contributions to a relationship. But like, what types of feelings or thoughts might come up if, like, you're doing all the work, you're bringing all the money, and then you see your partner not doing anything, right?
Right. So I think a common example is like a husband works and maybe the sole breadwinner, and the wife is a homemaker and raises children. And I think in some relationships, there is that perception that raising children or being a homemaker is not a job,
and it's not, and that it's
easier because they don't have to go to work. And so that can create interesting feelings and a sense of resentment, and it certainly shift relationship dynamics with your partner, with your children, your relationship to your job, your relationship and your identity, right? The identity piece of I provide and I have to provide. So I don't have the same freedom or options, but at the same time, I have power and I have control, versus I'm dependent on someone. And you see that a lot in relationships that go south. And if someone is solely dependent on another person financially, it limits their options. Even in terms of like an abusive relationship, they may not be able to get, or may not see a way to get safe. Or you'll see, women more commonly, sometimes men, I'm sure, who are just not in the loop about their finances. You've experienced this a lot with the hotline that you help. And so if they're getting divorced or a partner dies or something, now they don't even know the status of their financial situation, because they weren't included necessarily, because it's not their money.
Well, so then that highlights the benefits of being the breadwinner, is the financial security and stability that you kind of always know you'll have, because you know you have earning potential and capabilities. And sometimes people manage their finances differently. Sometimes there's the main breadwinner, the breadwinner, and then the other person manages the day-to-day finances. So maybe the breadwinner doesn't know what's going on in the accounts and the bills. But still, having the confidence that you can bring in money is peace of mind that comes with being the breadwinner. There's
until it's not. Until it's, dear God, what if I can't bring in money?
True.
Because this whole family is reliant on me. Or what if I lose my job, or I can't, make a career change that I want to make. I don't have that luxury.
Okay. All right.
I can't afford to, be sick.
I wasn't thinking about all those things.
It's power and freedom until it's pressure and responsibility.
Right.
And it's a spectrum, I think, and it probably ebbs and flows depending on your phase of life or where you're at, and that I can imagine, I don't have this experience, but I can imagine if you have, let's say you have 3 kids and a partner, whether that's a husband or a wife, and you're the sole breadwinner, the emphasis that you put on your career may be more intense and maybe disproportionate to what you otherwise would have.
Yeah.
Because it's so critical to the safety of your family.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen that amongst colleagues and friends when a couple has like their first child,
Mm-hmm.
and if a man even gets paternity leave is a question, right? But maternity leave is usually longer and usually available more often than paternity leave. And then when they have to go back to work to provide, like knowing that the wife is or the mother is having more of a connection with the kid,
Yeah, right.
Whereas the mom is like, but I'm the one that has to do all the work,
right? And I'm exhausted. But like anything, it's trade-offs and lots of sacrifices, right? So not being able to make all of the plays and the assemblies or be there for for all of the moments, it could be the trade-off. And again, these are the extremes because there are scenarios where both parents work or whatever.
So I want to know your perception from like as far as you can remember, like growing up. How did you perceive your adulthood would be? Like, would you be the breadwinner or you would have a partner that would be?
I don't think I ever imagined a world when that I wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Like ever in my life.
But in terms of relative.
I'm not sure I thought about that when I was younger. Other than I was very afraid to be financially insecure just because of my upbringing.
Yeah. And
I also had a lot of confidence in my competence.
Yeah.
But I was so naive around money. I didn't have any context. I didn't know what was a lot of money to make, what was not. It seemed so like unfathomable that you could take certain steps and get to a certain amount of money. Yeah. I just like, I think when I first like crossed six figures in salary, or even before that, I think like my job I had all through college and then for many years after, I got a raise to like $60,000. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. I didn't think I would do this. I didn't know that this was possible, which is just funny now. And I still feel that way to some extent. Like, my eyes now are I want to be a millionaire. Yeah. And I still get like kind of stunned when I hear, certain people I work with, how much they make. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's just follow this path, So that's kind of, I think, where it was. And growing up, when my parents were together, I don't know who made more, but neither of them had like a career really. Yeah. I've talked about my dad being a touring musician and going on tour and then coming home and working a straight job for a little while and back and forth. Yeah. And my mom it was just struggling to make ends meet. Yeah. And then when my mom remarried, I mean, my stepdad was absolutely the breadwinner. And as a kid, I actually think that created a lot of fear in me. I was afraid of digesting this with my therapist of like, don't fuck things up. Yeah. Because now we have breathing room. Now, like, he took me shopping. He bought me a bike. Yeah. Like, don't make him upset. Yeah. Because this is nice and good and he has money and my mom can relax. So I think there was that. And so for me, that pressure or drive, I'll say, more so than pressure of like, I always want to have my financial independence. And that's part of the reason why now I think it would be very uncomfortable. Not I think. It would be very uncomfortable for me to to be financially dependent on someone else. Yeah. I don't care if they make more than me.
Even if it's like 10 times more, 20 times more.
Maybe. That might make me feel insecure. Yeah, to be honest. I think that would make me somewhat uncomfortable because of the power dynamics. Yeah. I think I've maybe told this story before, but I went on a date one time with this guy. We had only dated for a little while. He was an attorney and I offered to pay on, it was like our third or fourth date or something. And he kind of like scoffed. Yeah. And I made good money. And I was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't want to be perceived as less than or that power imbalance really bothers me. And that's not to say that would always be the case. Every person is different. But I don't think I'd be comfortable with that.
I think I remember that situation because I was in that same, like in that era. I remember like everyone I dated, I made more money then.
Yeah.
And so it was weird to me to hear something like that where it's such the opposite when I'm so used to providing for myself.
Yeah.
And being okay with it. So I mean, I know people, and I've had instances too where I like being taken care of, but not to the point where I'm dependent on you.
Yeah.
Like just because it's a nice treat and it's nice to have.
Sure. Yeah. I had similar, I was used to making more money than most people I dated, and it didn't bother me. It may have bothered them.
Oh, it definitely bothered people I dated for sure.
And then it was really interesting when I quit my job.
Yeah.
Because I was living with a partner at the time. Previously, I made a lot more money than him. And then I had no income.
That's me the last couple of years. That's
and
the same thing.
We were both very frugal and just kind of luckily had a low cost of living, a really rent-controlled apartment. So we didn't spend a ton of money. And so, regardless of the imbalance either way, we just split everything 50-50. But there were a couple times, like I think once my car went into the shop, and I always had a safety net, but I would get stressed sometimes, like, oh, I feel like I'm spending too much money. And, or, there would be a month where I overspent, even if I did have a safety net. And so my car went into the shop and he took it in and he's like, I paid for it for you. And I was not comfortable. I was grateful.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, I don't like this.
Because you feel like you owe something? Or
yeah.
like
and I think
indebted to someone?
It comes from a deeper thing that I'm exploring in therapy of like not having needs. Like how dare I need something from you? I'm supposed to just be there and not
be the one doing things for you.
And so, exactly. Fulfill your needs. How dare I have needs? So I think it's from that more than anything. But because that wasn't a situation of being dependent. Being dependent is a whole other level of feeling that I think would make me feel powerless. Yeah. Unless it was a certain situation.
Yeah. I mean, I feel strongly everyone is allowed to have needs and expectations and support. It's all a balance and it's all compatibility and what you guys agree on. So I'm very lax when it comes to that. It just made me think like your exact same story was what happened with me and my now husband is I think going into the relationship, we probably actually earned about the same. So we were probably in that statistic where our income was about the same. Yeah. However, and soon after we got together is when I took the leap to start my own business and went from like multiple six-figure salary to zero for the last 2 years-ish. Like I'm starting to pay myself a little bit, but I'm definitely not at six figures, hardly at 5 figures. And it worked out for us because so something else I didn't know growing up that I was naive to was the difference between your yearly income and salary versus your overall wealth and net worth. So for us, it just worked out that I came to the table with higher net worth, not by a ton, but definitely more. And so, and we, having been the same income, but then I took my income away, this has made him the primary, basically sole breadwinner for the last year and a half or so. But to me, it hasn't felt too different because I've pulled from my assets to kind of pay for things here and there. And that's my contribution is, we get to live in the house that's under my name and I get to contribute in different ways. And I think over time, it's gonna vary, but our skill level and our potential to earn and our knowledge on finances and the way we manage our finances are so in lockstep that I don't see there being a problem with the power dynamic unless it's me who becomes like the sole breadwinner or the primary breadwinner making like 20 times more than him. I think that would create some
because he's more
issues.
traditional in that way, and in prior relationships has been the sole breadwinner, and that was the expectation.
Right.
Yeah.
I think over time, now that we get older, he's getting used to that potential of that idea, even though it may never happen or it may not. But where I sit from my perspective, I can do all scenarios and be fine with it. I could be slightly dependent because I'll never be fully dependent. I'll always have my own assets.
That was what I was going to say. Do you think you would feel differently if
I had
you
no
didn't
assets.
if you didn't have those
Yes,
assets?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I have assets under my name that are mine. I have even if I have zero income for like annual income, I have that to fall back on.
Yeah.
And so I feel fine right now making less than him. I'd feel fine making the same as him. I'd personally feel fine making more than him. I don't know that it's the same for him.
No, I think from everything I've observed, it was uncomfortable for him that you had more assets.
Yeah.
Not to say anything about you, but for him to feel like he wasn't pulling his weight.
But it wasn't anything like, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's traditionally, culturally, in where we grew up, the environment, that's the narrative that is presented to everyone, is that the man is a provider. Now, this made me think, though, on the flip side, what do you think of like 50-50 splits to the household if there's a difference in income?
So I personally think if there's a meaningful difference in income, it should be proportional. Yeah. That's what I think is the most fair, right? So if total income, if you make 70% of the total income, pay 70% of the expenses or so of the fixed costs, let's say. I also think it's really important partially because I think it's really important for all people to have some income to themselves and to have some freedom. And so I experienced that at certain times in a 50-50 household where there were some months where like it was light for me, and he wanted to go on a trip or something, is like, all my money is going to the expenses, right? I don't have that extra breathing room to, just spend at will, whereas you do. And that, just from like a mental well-being standpoint, can be hard. Yeah. Right? And I think that it may be 50-50 distribution of costs. It's not 50-50 distribution of like the burden. Yeah. That's true. That's that. Yeah. Because it's not just for the breadwinner, the pressure to make. It's for the other person. Like, it's matching up lifestyles. Yes. Right? That. Because if you guys had a disparity in income, but your guys' lifestyle matched more of the lower income, you wouldn't feel too much difference, right? You could afford the trips. But if your guys' lifestyle matches the higher income, that's where the dependency begins. Because, right, let's all of a sudden y'all break up or get in a fight. You don't have access to that lifestyle anymore. You got to bring it back down. It's going to change you more as the one that's not the breadwinner. Right. And I think that's one of the things that makes me uncomfortable with the idea of my partner making like 10 times or 20 times more than me, is that they would either have to change their lifestyle, bring it down to the lowest common denominator. Yeah, come down to my level. Or I would have to, you find a middle ground, but in order to raise up to their level, I would have to be somewhat dependent. Right. And I don't like that idea. But so it's one thing to be in a relationship, partnership, but then marriage, that's why there's like nuptial agreements, right? Yeah. To kind of help with that if there has to be a transition in the future. Yeah. So that you're not just like going from this big house to having to like be on the streets. For sure. But I think even as it's happening, I would be uncomfortable, right? Because like, you're like, they're like, let's go on a private jet or, whatever it is. Or like, let's have this extravagant trip or whatever. And I'm like, to some extent, I'd be okay with it. But I think there'd be a point where I'd be like, I'm not contributing to this. However, okay, let me play devil's advocate a little more. As the woman, let's say you're in a relationship where you both have the shared goal of children and raising a family. And the woman is the only one who has the physical capability to do that
process and to even to breastfeed and to do all those things, does that change how, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it guilt, but does that change your feelings about saying yes and being okay with taking some of that money?
It's very complicated because for me personally, and I think just in society, because I think that's something I haven't fully reconciled in that, you know, I'm not a mother, but I've wanted to be, and at the same time have never thought I would be willing to let go of work for many reasons. One, just personal fulfillment and drive and independent, all these things. And that's not to say I look down on women who don't work outside of the home, but I think the other complicated factor is just having seen so many examples of where the financial value is not is perceived as more powerful, and then the man has like freedom, right? He cheats, or it justifies different behavior. So I think that's complicated for me. Even though there's no doubt in my mind that I would be pulling my weight in a relationship, regardless of finances, I still think money holds so much power. Yeah. What do you think?
I agree with your sentiment that it's complicated. Yeah. Because I think it is, and I think it is very much a personal decision, and it's like your lens of the world. So I don't think it's static either. I think you change over time. I think you may change how you feel once you have kids. I think you may change how you feel if you become the primary breadwinner, multimillionaire, and whatever. Right? I think it changes. But for me, something that I've opened my mind to ever since, let's say, the last 5 years, I've gone through this journey of being like pure workaholic, gotta make money. That is my ultimate big goal, is to make money, build my wealth so that I have that security. I still want that, but I've had to open my mind to other ways of living because I've seen peers and friends have a different perspective, especially from a woman's perspective, where, you know, we have, well, I don't, I have this thing called amenorrhea, so I don't have a period right now, but women in general, we have periods that affect how we function on a monthly basis, right? We feel different ways every different week of the month. That affects how we perform at a job. That affects how our brains function, our focus. Men will never understand that. It's a hormonal thing. Like it has to do with our physiology, right? And so because of the more I learn about women and how we're kind of meant to operate from a biological standpoint, the times we're supposed to rest versus the times we can push it, right? We can't, it's kind of hard for a woman to stick to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday lifting weight schedule, because technically there's like a week out of the month that you're supposed to take it more easier.
You're fighting against your biology, assuming you're menstruating.
So taking all those factors that a woman has to go through, I've changed my perspective on like the notion of like a 50-50 dynamic. I don't think it's ever 50-50, and I think there are some things that you're never going to understand just from a biological standpoint in a heteronormative or heterosexual relationship. So I have mixed feelings as well. I feel like in my head, if I were to take 9 months to a year off, like for raising a kid, I think I could do it without working. When it comes time, if I'm able to have a child, I will happily take a year or 2 off from work, be not a breadwinner at all, not making anything, and I'll feel okay with that nuance. I'm already giving my answer at the end of the at the end of the episode, but with the nuance that I have assets and I have a financial plan that would take care of me in any scenario. If something happened to Alan, Like if you passed away, like we have insurance policies in place to take care of me. I have the skills and knowledge to both work a job and start a business.
Right.
I have all these things where I feel confident I can make it work. So if there's a phase in my life where I'm dependent, I guess, on an income, I'm okay. Like I'd generally be okay with it because of those reasons outlining like the difference between men and women, like what we bring and what we have to go through.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I get it. I think it's interesting as we're, just digging into this personally and in general, it's very layered. And I think that's really important to highlight.
Yeah.
Like, for me, my feelings about it, they're not right by any sense.
Yeah.
There is no right. It's just, it's informed by my own like traumas and my upbringing and socialization and, frankly, things that make me comfortable or uncomfortable, which may or may not be healthy, it just is. And so I think that's, really key is like every person is different and there's just a wide range of feelings because it is such a complicated issue informed by gender identity and society and your, power and all of these things.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought of because you were sharing about your upbringing is when I grew up, my parents had a big age gap between them. My mom was my dad's second wife. His first wife passed away. My dad immigrated to the U.S. about 20 years before my mom did. Both of them have these stories of coming to America with $0 in their pocket and had to start from scratch.
Yeah.
My dad came through the military and made a living and then, was able to buy a home and was to have a solid income and worked blue-collar jobs his entire career. My mom immigrated 20 years later, so she had a similar path. Like she knew how to work and make money, but she started from scratch and 20 years later. Yeah. So when they had kids together, I would say that even though my mom worked jobs and part-time jobs, because my dad already had
he had a
head start.
Yeah.
It felt to me, my perception was he was the provider, but he soon after got sick and had to retire. So I didn't know where the money was coming from. Like you said, I was so naive. I think my mom worked some jobs, but my dad had money from, Social Security and I don't know if it was like disability or retirement. I don't know what. Something. I didn't know how it worked back then.
Yeah.
But my perception was that that the money was coming from different places and I had no clue. But beyond that, my mom was the caretaker taking care of my dad my entire life because he was sick my entire life until he passed. And so it's like I just kind of internalized that, the woman does have to work, but she also has to be the caretaker, and I'm fine with that. And so going into adulthood, I am fine with that. But like I said, if I have the right situation, I'm also learning how to be fine with not doing all that.
That's probably be some good growth for me because I have the same of like, okay, as a woman, you have to do all the things.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily mind
to be
that.
Superwoman, right?
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, we love our Superwoman mothers and women in the world, but even it's a weird feeling I have when we glorify that because it's like an expectation that you're supposed to be that. And if you're not, then what? Are you less of a mom? Are you less of a woman? No, you're not.
Right.
It's a lot to juggle.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Gives me some stuff to think about.
Right? So, I mean, it gives me stuff to think about. I think as we navigate our adulthoods, like in a couple of years, I'm nearing 40, and it's like, cool. This is how I thought in the last 10, 20 years in my career. This is how I'm going to think in the next couple of years. Sure. I can't see too far out in the future, but I think it changes. I think, as a financial planner, as a financial counselor, I have to say that the best thing you can do for your individual self is build up your own wealth and have assets in your name. It could be a couple hundred to a couple thousand to, six figures or more. Whatever it is, something. Because even if on a yearly, annual basis, you're not the breadwinner, you have something to fall back on should anything occur.
Yeah.
Right.
And or if you're, let's say you get married and you don't have that, enter into some type of agreement. Or, navigate this in such a way that, you're setting aside something for yourself so that you're never left with nothing.
Yeah. I think the common theme is like our boundary, you and I, and hopefully others watching this, is that the dependency.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's okay to be dependent on your partner for various things in bits and pieces, but if you're solely dependent on another person financially, that's scary.
Well, I didn't even bring this up, but, I've talked about my marriage, and I was the sole breadwinner. And that was a lot of pressure. It created resentment for sure. And we were very young. But when we split, particularly because it was his fault, I didn't give him anything. And, it was not a lot of money, but like he could have asked for alimony. But that was for sure a difficult transition for him. And I wouldn't want to be in that reverse position. He was fine. It's not, I wasn't going to.
Did you feel bad at all?
This man cheated on me. I did not feel bad.
Okay. I want to make sure.
He made his bed and he laid it in. No, but I didn't let him, I wasn't going to let him be homeless. No, he was fine. He got support from his family and stuff. But I wasn't about to give him more money if I didn't have to. But yeah, I mean, things happen. I think that's the one thing I've learned in life is no matter what you set out to do, unexpected things happen. I've experienced it so many times. You have too.
So
life
any
happens.
Safety net you can have.
And, at the end of the day, as much as you can have incredible family and incredible friends, and I, have been so grateful and had so many supportive people in my life, at the end of the day, all I really have, if it came down to it, is myself.
Yep.
So
100%.
You take care of yourself.
All right, so I
put your own safety. No, put your own safety.
Put your own
oxygen mask.
Oxygen mask first.
First.
Yeah.
Not safety
well, I
net.
think I know where this is going.
All right.
20 cents?
20 cents.
20 cents is the segment of the show where both Lizzy and myself, Lissa, each get 60 seconds to give our 2 cents on today's topic, whether it's a net positive or net negative for being the breadwinner. Where does 20 cents come from?
Because you get the opinion of 2 dimes, y'all.
You get the opinion of 2 dimes. So, Liz, you're up first. 60 seconds on the clock. What do you think? Is being the breadwinner worth it?
This is still complicated. My preference would be more of a 50-50 or, somewhat equal share. But as I've stated, I am uncomfortable being financially dependent. So I would not want someone else to be the sole breadwinner. And if I had to choose, I think I would rather be the sole breadwinner. So I will go with yes, it's worth it, given my own neuroses and, array of experiences.
Interesting.
Net positive.
All right. There's something to add to that if I remember after I do mine. All right. Yeah.
What about you, Lise?
So mine is nuanced because when I think about is it worth it being the breadwinner, the main provider or sole provider, I'm thinking of it in terms of annual income, yearly income, right? And so in that sense, I'm fine not being the breadwinner.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about having like a cushion and, and that I don't know that I'd want that to be the norm forever.
Sure.
So there's a lot of nuance to it. So, but from everything I've said in this episode, I feel similar to you, net positive on being the breadwinner because, like you said, at the end of the day, you have to look out for yourself, and that's the only way you'll have financial peace of mind is if you have your own finances in order as an individual, whether or not you're married or have a relationship, like as an individual. So I'm gonna go net positive and not waste my time to share this point. We didn't dig too much into it, but are you basically saying that net positive, you'd rather be the breadwinner and if it was a choice, you would be the breadwinner at the potential expense of your man, because we're both we date men, right? At the expense of his potential like pride and ego, and because that could cause other problems in the relationship.
Okay, if it's just making more and we both make money and just making more, I could not care less, right? He can be the breadwinner. Go for it.
Yeah.
Have fun. if it's being the only person to make money in the relationship, I'd rather it be me and his pride be damned. I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm not making any money.
Yeah.
But that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it probably would end up changing how successful your relationship was anyway.
It would. Yeah. It would have a big impact.
Yeah. Because if you couldn't hack that, it wouldn't last long anyway.
Yeah. It takes a certain type of person, to be comfortable with that.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, remember, this is what we think at this moment in time. Both Liz and I think net positive for being the breadwinner.
Why not?
Why not? Why not have that bread? But no one can make that decision but you. So what do you think? Do you think being the breadwinner is worth it?
Hit us up. Let us know what you think. Email us at hi@netnetpodcast.com or follow us on Instagram at netnetpodcast. And if you want to follow us individually, here's where you can find us.
I'm at Wealth for Women of Color on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
And I'm at live_well_Lizzy on Instagram and TikTok.
All references, statistics, and resources mentioned can be found in our show notes. This podcast is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be constituted as financial advice. Remember to always do your own research, consult a professional as needed, and feel empowered to make your own damn decisions.